second there. Um, just getting started. Mm, give me 1 second. We'll get going here shortly. Um, one more post. Yeah, snuck up on me. Past the client. All right. How is everyone doing today? Wherever you are, wherever you're watching from, thank you for joining me this evening. My name is Grace Bella. Professionally, I'm a licensed mortgage broker. So I wasn't sharing. I hope that's the way it's sharing. My apologies if it's not. So yeah, professionally, I'm a licensed mortgage broker here in Canada. And then I also do, sorry, I had a speaker who's supposed to be joining us today. It's the other thing I'm looking for is where is this person? Doesn't look like they will be here either. And that's okay. Hoping you can hear me. Who's in, if you can hear me, just give me a thumbs up and tell me that you can hear. Alright, great. I'm gonna write a note, getting started now. The financial goals for the year, if you're comfortable. But what I thought was interesting was there was a lot of like savings targets, like hard dollar amounts. Or, what I'm interested in as a mortgage broker, people reaching out because they want to purchase a property this year, rather than, any other year. This is the year that they want to. I thought, there's dollar amounts, there's different things that people were looking at, and I thought that was really cool. Give me 1 second. I just want to post something as I'm doing this. There you go. So yes, I thought that was really cool that people were also looking at both hard dollar amounts as well as like more flexible goals, I guess. Is that what we could call it? That had more to do with like I want to spend less this year. What was another one I liked? I like that I want to spend less this year because I don't know, I'm not a big fan of like, I don't know how to say that, like not hard, I don't know how to describe that, but I like flexibility in life. I think it's really important to give yourself direction, but then to also give yourself wiggle room, if that makes sense. So you need both. You need direction, but you also need wiggle room. And I think both those things are really important in tandem. Why do I think that's important? Okay, that finally eventually takes me to my notes. So as a Christian, I'm not gonna like beat religion over anyone's head, but I do always like mentioning scriptures that have impacted me and really impacted how I view things, and how, I would say how I view things or how I share life and its success. And one of the things that makes goal planning really important is honesty with yourself. And like there's no point, you can lie to other people, like I'll use my son who's gonna hate me, but he'll he's 15, hates it when people ask him what do you want to do when you grow up. And so he'll just say like whatever's on his mind that day. And it's just, he just wants you to give you an answer that's going to shut you up, so that you don't ask him any more questions, right? And and I think sometimes we do that with ourselves. If we don't know where we want to go, we don't really have an idea of what we want to do, we may just say something, just, you know, as is. And I think that's something that's really important. So being honest with yourself is important, and that's maybe the hardest part, when we're talking about financial goals. Um, I'm gonna write that down. Being honest with yourself, because sometimes you don't want to say things out loud, even to yourself, because you're not sure you're going to be able to do them. And it sounds so different when it escapes your mouth, you know? So if you're going to sit there and make a financial goal, I challenge you to go sit in the mirror, look at yourself, and say, okay, Grace, I want to do this year. And see how it makes you feel when you're looking at yourself, having that conversation with yourself, you know? Are you comfortable saying that? You know, is this something that you really, really think you can, hang on to? Is this something that you're comfortable, how do I say that? Like just being able to capture and follow through on? Are you ready to put in the hard work for it, or does it just sound good to say, and then you won't have to worry about the fact that, oh yeah, I didn't do anything. Um, you want to be able to say, I'm working on that. So there is a scripture for that. I was going to say there's a song for that because I like songs for everything. But there is a scripture for that for sure. And let me grab it for you. It's in my notes. Hope deferred makes the heart weak. That's one scripture. So, and part of the reason that it makes it difficult for us to set goals is because of that deep understanding that we have within ourselves, that if I don't reach this goal, if I don't live up to this goal, it really is going to hurt. And depression is a big thing that we talk about these days. And sometimes people just don't have that courage to really stand up to themselves financially, because they know, I know that if I let myself down, I can hide from other people, I can be angry and not talk to them, I can deflect, I can do so many things, but with myself, I can't. With yourself, you just can't. But a longing fulfilled is sweet to the soul. And so, I think if you think back to your childhood or any recent memory of a time when like you had an amazing experience and you were just, you're overcome with peace. When you have an amazing experience, I'm going to write that in there. I love that. Longing fulfilled is sweet to the soul. And it really does. It brings you peace. It brings you joy. It calms you down, when you hit a goal. And there's certain goals that you might make them, and then when you do hit them, they don't give you that same peace. And that's the truth. It's because it really wasn't something you wanted, or you weren't as clear with yourself as to that's what that you wanted. And so, what makes a goal sweet to the soul? What makes it so that when you hit that goal, it's going to be sweet to the soul is congruence, is number one. So when you're doing your financial plan, Lindsay mentioned this the other day. Oh, I don't remember what she said exactly about congruence, and the way we act. There was another word that she used that I'd never seen the interaction between the two words, but congruence is a big one that I feel, in financial planning, that some people, let me ask her if she's around. Congruence and what go together? Go together. So congruence is, it's almost like a meshing. It's like when your actions match your feelings, right? Like to me, that's congruence. When you say like, I don't want to spend any money this week, and then you're in the store, like, why are you in the mall? Do you know what I mean? So it's like you want to spend no money this week, but at the same time you're in the mall. Like those two things don't go together. You're doing it to yourself, because at the end of the day, it's not that you don't want to buy anything. You just don't want to spend money, right? Like So congruence is really important when it comes to financial planning. It has to fit with you. It can't fit with your neighbor. Do you know what I mean? Like for me, for example, um, I remember when I turned 30, I decided that like I wanted to do like the whole makeup thing every day. Like my little sister, she could wear makeup every day, does her hair, does her nails. You know what I mean? Like, but she could do that every single day. And I wanted to, this is actually funny. I wanted to wear two pieces of clothing every day because like this is a single dress. Like I will most likely always just put on a dress and call it a day. Whether it's short or long, chances are if you see me, I am wearing a dress. So for the goal of that year when I was 30, I wanted to wear two pieces a day. Whether it was like I wore a dress and then like had a blazer on it or a skirt with the blouse. I know it seems radical, right? We have no idea how simplistic my life can be. Like I really can't wear one article of clothing and call it a day. And so for my 30th, I wanted more makeup, do my hair and everything. If you see pictures of the year I turned 30, you'll actually notice like there's a few days where I had makeup on and I had my hair straightened. I know, right? Um, but it didn't vibe with me. It wasn't like I don't know why I made that goal, but I decided that year I was going to do that. But it didn't last long because it didn't fit my soul. You know what I mean? It wasn't congruent with who I am. And so when you're thinking about your financial goals, you know, whether you want to buy a house or whatever it is that you want to do, it needs to be congruent with you, which is interesting because it brings us to our next point about planning as a couple. Now, I am in the process of writing a book about this. I think we're on year three. I guess the end of 2026 will be year four. I have gotten 34,000 words done. You can clap for me. Um, and that's not enough to keep going with this. But when you're planning as a couple, you are two different people. There is nothing worse than watching. Like I worked in personal finance for what 17 years, and I was married for longer than that. Um, there is nothing worse than watching someone getting dragged along in someone else's dream. Do you hear me? There's nothing worse than watching someone getting dragged along in someone else's dream. And that's the problem with personal financial planning as a couple. The book I'm writing is actually called What's Good for the Goose is Good for the Gander. And what's really important and what I like to note there is remember the 2 points, right? Our two key points. Hope deferred makes the heart weak. One. A longing fulfilled is sweet to the soul. Two. Those are the cornerstones of personal financial planning. And if you take those two into a couple and you constantly preach this gospel of compromise, you may never reach a longing fulfilled for either one of them because you're constantly meeting in the middle. And you may also never really, you know, you may end up with one person who's deferring, and maybe they're deferring things that are important to them that they need, and then they end up depressed. And so it's really important as a couple when you are doing personal financial planning that you start alone. I know it's weird. Start alone. You've got to start and write what it is that you're looking for alone. Um, and the big part of that reason is because within money, within finances, is our identity, right? Finances are an expression of our identity. Um, and if you don't have the financial, I think so many people are familiar with this saying where a lot of people will say, um, what is it? You only know someone's true personality when they have the money to be able to show it. Otherwise, until then, they are they're not as open to showing who they are. Is that what it is? And something like that. And so it's really important to note that you could pull someone along, right? They may not have the financial power to really be able to express themselves and their identity. Um, and that's important to note, when you're in a relationship and you're doing financial planning. Give space in the relationship for individual planning. Give space in the relationship somehow for not. I always hear people talk about this. Oh yeah, you need to have like a certain amount of cash in your pocket for yourself to buy the things you need without permission. And the word permission is the piece that expresses incongruence, right? Um, why should someone in a married relationship need permission? Like, permission just strikes me as the wrong word, um, which I think is why allowance strikes me as the wrong word. When you have a household, for example, where there's a single income earner, there's always this discussion about the non-working spouse needs to have an allowance so that they feel like, they don't need to be begging or asking for money or whatever the case may be. I don't know. There's just some words that show a lack of alignment to the soul because, and this is really where it starts, the Bible verse, money is the root of evil. It's nothing but it's just talking about our souls, right? It's not about our actions. A lot of people say it's an action thing. Like, no, it's not. Having money is not the issue. It's where money sits in your soul that could be the issue. Like, what is it doing in your heart, right? What is it doing um, depth wise? And so, words like permission when you're in a relationship or allowance in a relationship, they do show like an issue of power. And I'm not sure, because relationship, power, I don't know. There's a lot going on there. And so when I provide financial coaching or advice on an individual basis and with couples, it really is about trying to unpack and understand what some of these dynamics are. Because at the end of the day, there isn't a one size fits all. And there's actually this new budgeting tool that I really like, and I'm looking forward to getting to see a bit more because there's been a lot with technology, new apps, new innovations, a lot of financial institutions, not just banks, but financial institutions as a whole, are starting to create more integration with your banking, like with your actual transaction needs and your data analysis of your transactions. And one of them that I'd seen recently really dealt with that emotional aspect of your spending, and it was using colors like green for good, it's in line with what I want to do, yellow, ooh, I might be out of line, and red. It also had like words in it that I thought were really important, and it was like, if I make this purchase, so you're not checking your balance, so you would like put in a potential transaction that you want to do, and the question was, if I make this purchase, am I going to be okay financially? Is this going to impact me financially, like for the month? And so it wasn't like a 200 minus 100. I've got 200 in my account. I want to spend 100. My balance is going to be 100. That's not the issue. The issue is this decision a green decision? Like it's in line with my goals. Yellow, it's maybe not. And red, no, it really isn't. And so we'll get into some. So next week we'll get into some budgeting tools. We'll take a look at them. But we don't start with budgeting in our first week, and the reason being, um, a lot of people will say things like, I'm not good at math, right? I'm not good at math. But you go to work, you earn an income, you pay rent, you buy food. Is it really about being good at math? I don't think so, right? So that's why I don't like to start with budgeting, because at the beginning of it, you lose a lot of people when there's numbers involved, even though it's life that's involved. When there's numbers involved, you lose a lot of people there. And so next week we'll be talking about cash flow, which is really how I like to put it, right? What are you doing in your life? There's a Bible verse for that, and it actually says, where is it? Let me grab it. I didn't write it down. Um, It's one of my favorite, actually. It's about the whole seven side hustles. Okay, how many side hustles? That's, I know you don't believe me. How many side hustles does the Bible say we should have? If you're not sure, yes, I've read all the books of wisdom: Ecclesiastes, Songs of Solomon, Proverbs. I love those books. Um, so Ecclesiastes 11 says, invest in seven ventures, yes, in eight, for you don't know what disaster may come upon the land. Um, so how many side hustles does the Bible say we should have? Yeah. Definitely one of my favorites. So even in the Bible, invest in seven ventures, yes, in eight, for you don't know what disaster may come upon the land. And so it's not saying, be a workaholic, be constantly working, that kind of thing. But the idea is, which is so contrary to what we're taught in this day about get a job, get a career, work, save so you can retire. I think having those seven different, streams or ventures, they call it ventures, is about exploring life really in all its depths, right? Not just serving as you pass by something, but like deeper diving into it, right? I'll use my example for traveling. Like, I love traveling, but I don't like going to places, taking pictures at museums, swimming in the ocean. Well, no, I do. I do. Um, but that's not all I do when I travel, right? I think it's really important when you travel to get in depth with the culture, to experience it. Um, but I also love to see how are the people living? How are they making money, right? Because we're so different culturally, globally, and being able to see, like, what's here that I could take home and sell, like, what's popular here, what's driving the economy. I mean, obviously my background, I do have a bachelor of science in economics, so maybe my background kind of drives that. But I think that's what it's talking about when it's talking about invest in seven ventures. Be curious, but be profitably curious, right? Don't just pass by and never question anything, right? It's about, like, our kids who buy chicken from the supermarket and don't know chicken comes from a chicken. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's important to for them to question, like, where's the chicken coming from? And then if they find out the chicken's coming from, like, South America and we're all the way here in Canada, I think it's important for them to think about that and be like, maybe I should look at farming chickens. Like, a lot of cities in North America allow you, to have a certain number of eggs, to be able to grow eggs in your backyard now, and chickens, because, those are small ventures people can get into, so I think it's really important. That's what it's saying. So be curious around the world around you, and I think it helps you to be more curious with yourself and to learn a bit more about yourself as well. Um, so we'll talk about. So when we talk about cash flow, that's really what we're looking at. It's not just income minus expenses, but it's also, um, really a conversation about goals. Because, yeah, you can have an incredible income, and that income leads to nothing because, um, you don't really have, what did we say? Hope deferred makes the heart ache. You don't really have a longing, right? Or at least you do have a longing. You know what it is that you want, but you may not be honest with yourself. And so you may have an amazing income, but long term wise, you're not able to see where you're going, and then that's what makes it difficult to make your cash flow. And we'll talk a little bit about taxes. We do have next week a guest speaker lined up. He's a tax consultant, so we'll have a conversation because this is tax season, so make sure you do log in. And then after that, we're going to have a conversation on saving and investing. One of my favorite, things. You can't save, what is it? You can't save your way to wealth, I think is how it's said. I could be wrong. Yeah. Like, you can't wolf this group to wealth. It keeps wanting to tag something. Yeah. And I think that that's really important for sure. So that's not next week, but that's the week after. We'll be talking about that, saving versus investing, the importance of both. And again, One of my favorites, right? We have people who will invest in RSPs, and then by the end of the year, you've taken everything out from your RSPs that you put in, and then you spent it. And then others who will save their money, but then that whole issue of investing, what was it? Was the Bible say invest in multiple ventures? You know, they're worried, they're scared, they don't want to invest in anything, and then the cash just sits there. And we've seen with inflation how important it is to be invested in something, whether it's a business or in the market, real estate, whatever you choose, right? Really important to be doing something with your money because inflation will eat it. Um, and yeah, and oh yeah, on the savings thing, that one, the conversation really is about honesty again, because there isn't a magic number for anyone. I was talking to somebody today and I said the average client that I work with is in their mid to early 50s, all their way up to, you know, late 60s, thereabouts. That's the average age of my clients. And it's at that age that people are just thinking, like, what am I going to do? What's up? There's a little bit of vulnerability that we start to get as we're entering our 50s in terms of realizing that I can't keep up this pace. I need to have a plan. What's next in my life? And so that's what that conversation is going to be about on saving and investing. That's coming up after that. Because there isn't a magic number for everyone. And so it's really important to understand when you're saving and investing, what is it? What are you doing it for your kids? Are you doing it for your grandkids? I mean, the other day I was talking to somebody who was 83 and she's talking about her kids. They're 61. You know what I mean? Like, are we really leaving inheritances for 61-year-olds? Or are we leaving inheritances for, you know, 40 some olds? Or in her case, it was actually looking to do something for her great grandkids who are in their 20s now. And I think that's really important, right? So, you know, who are we saving and investing for? We're living multiple lifetimes now, you know? We're living much longer than we were before and much more productive lives too. Um, the Bible, once again, says that you are guaranteed 70 years of full strength, you know? So everyone always says that's the amount of years that you're given to live. No, those are the amount of years you're given to live at full strength, which is why the retirement age is 65. So then you get 5 years after to just enjoy yourself of full strength before you start to have decline in your health. So if you're in your late 50s, 60s, don't sit there thinking, oh my God, I'm late. You're nowhere near late. You still have a solid chunk of good quality, productive time left in you. So really important to be able to remain strong. And then, so that's the third one. So not this week, not this coming Tuesday, the Tuesday after that. That's when we're going to have that conversation on investing. And then our last one is going to be about on debt. Because debt is a tool. A lot of the countries, if you look at it, GDP around the world, a lot of GDP is driven by debt. So governments are using debt, companies are using debt, individuals are using debt, and it's just because it allows you to really leverage. And so we're going to talk about that, not just managing responsibly, but we'll have I'll talk on that from a mortgage perspective, and we'll have a realtor on that conversation with us as well, to do like a little guest speak on actually, yeah, on like purchasing home purchases. And I mean, that's not the only type of debt, but you know, buying businesses with debt, all sorts of things. There's lots of things that we'll discuss with debt. And that's it. So that was 34. That wasn't even 34. That was 30 minutes. And for 15, I was supposed to have somebody else to have the conversation with today, and they're not here, but it is what it is. I'm here. I don't know if there's anyone watching right now, if there's any questions. I will cut it short if there's none. Oh, right. I wanted to add a video on something. My apologies. I'm just going to jump over for a second to YouTube while this live is still on. And I just want to add a link to a video that I did before, just about general finances. Otherwise, yeah, I look forward to having you join us. If you are watching this and you are sitting there thinking, oh, I would love to have like a individual session with Grace, I'm definitely available for that. That's absolutely what I love doing. I do charge, well, the first session is free. We'll spend about an hour talking and just trying to understand where we are. Um, and after the second session, we'll go, I see you, sis. Thank you. Yeah, then after this, so first session is free. We're gonna have this conversation, and then the second session is when, after this first session, sorry, we'll have a discussion and decide if we need to go further, if there's any tools. And I love now, because before I used to have to refer people to the mortgage brokerage side, but now I can do that lending on my own, and especially with mortgages coming up for renewals these next 2 years. Um, and where people are in life, right? I'm here if you have any questions specifically regarding mortgages. I can handle those on my own. And like I said, I do refer people on to other people. So if there's something that you need that I can't help you with, I definitely will. You know, I vet all the professionals I work with. If you're a professional and you're like, Grace, you've never referred me business, don't worry about it. Message me and I will let you know if there's anything that comes your way. But yeah, we definitely need to meet if you want me to refer you business, and I need to feel like we're on the same page, because there's nothing like referring people to someone and then their way of seeing money is completely different than your own. Yeah, but thank you guys for joining today for this session. And yeah, we'll see you next week, next Tuesday, same time for the next 3 weeks. All the best. Take care.